Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's study. And we're going to continue where we left off yesterday. But before we do, let's have a little prayer. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we invite your presence as we open your word together. And we're so thankful that we can be here this morning. We know, Lord, that you have light for us in this dark world. We know that there's much that's happening around us. Help us to be aware of the opportunities that you give us to share. And we thank you for your providence and help in our daily lives. So we pray that you can be with us in this study, and that your Holy Spirit can speak to us, and that we can receive your power and strength for this day. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. So yesterday, I got a bit carried away. We went a bit overtime, which doesn't usually happen, especially when I had to get somewhere. So I had to run, which was good because I was running to go exercise, but I had an appointment with someone. So it still turned out okay. Now, we were looking at the thing that I was looking at right at the end of the study was the word inquired, 7592. I was doing some math. 7592 inquired just means asked. It's a pretty common word. So I think it's sha'al. Yeah, sha'al. So yeah, and you can see in one place it's spelled inquire, the place inquire. I don't know. Is there a difference between the word inquired and inquire? I don't know.
No idea.
It's one of those words that confuses me all the time about it. Just how to spell it, because I see it spelled both ways. Now, this is the one, of course, he's inquiring of the Lord, who asking whether he should pursue. And he says, thou shalt pursue, for thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. So, I've looked at these Hebrew numbers, tried to figure out one thing we know is if we add 5381 to 5381, we get 10,762. And then if we add 5337 to 5337, we get 10,674. So the difference between those two is 88. And of course, 88 is a symbol dealing with the priests and Levites. So whether that's relevant or not, whether, in this.
Sure it is.
Well, in this context, whether it's giving us information that's useful or not, I don't know. Now, the other thing that we have is inquired. If we count that number from the time of the end, November 9th, 1989, it brings us to June 25th, 2002, which in itself isn't particularly important, but as a symbol, where does it bring us? 7, I may be getting this mixed up. Yeah. So, no.
2002 or 2022?
No, just 2002. So, yeah, it brings to June 25th, 2002. No, that's not right either. No, it brings us to getting all these different dates mixed up. So, I'm going to count this again. So, somehow I didn't put it in here. I know why.
While you're doing that.
Oh, yeah, June 25th, 2022. That's right. Okay,
22.
that's from 9/11. Okay, that's why. Yeah, Dwight?
Regarding the number 88.
Yeah.
Aren't there 88 keys on a piano?
Yes.
Now.
Yes. Yeah, so we relate it to Palmoni as well, just because we know that 8/13, there's 8 notes in an octave, a diatonic scale, and in a chromatic scale, there's 13 notes if you count the first and last note. So 88, because 80 keys on a piano, relates to that as well. But it's also from First Chronicles chapter 29 or Second Chronicles?
Second.
Second Chronicles, yeah. Okay. Yeah, Dwight, what else?
Okay, to answer your question versus the I versus E inquire,
Yeah.
in the King's English, the I inquire is traditionally reserved for formal or official investigations.
Like an inquiry.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
With what some would call colonial English, the E inquire is rarely used, but in the King's English, it is preferred for general questions and informal matters.
Okay. Okay, so that doesn't. I think people can use either one, though. Is I think kind of how it is. It just doesn't.
Well, if you prefer to use colonial English, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't think. I think both are considered correct. But anyway.
Yeah.
Now, so if we count from 9/11, 7,592 days, we get to June 25th, 2022. I don't know of anything particular about June 25th, 2022. I know it's a Sabbath, but the Mayan date, 9/11/13, is obviously the midpoint between 9/11/2001 and 9/11/2025. Right? So just as a symbol, it gives us that 9/11/13 in the Mayan date, right? Because that's 1309/11/13 is the Mayan date. So June 25th doesn't particularly mean anything to me as a symbol or anything. None of the other dates particularly have any significance. But the fact that
presentations on
well,
that?
there might be, but I haven't looked at that yet. Yeah, in 2022, we would have been doing understanding the lines. That would have been one of the studies in there, but I just don't know particularly what the significance of that date. But 9/11/13, the fact that just shows up because we're just dealt with the 24th anniversary of 9/11, with the day after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. So to me, just in that context, that 9/11/13 symbol becomes significant, the midpoint. So the idea here, this inquiring at the Lord, shall I pursue after this troop? And then he's supposed to pursue because he will surely overtake them and without fail recover all. So the idea that we were having yesterday, at least we discussed a little bit about what this means. Are we to pursue, right? That's the question that we would be asking right now in the context of what has happened last week. Okay, but we have these numbers, 5381, whether they're significant, they're doubled. Normally we just add them together. We have a span of time, right? But they don't produce any dates, as I tried to count them all out, that I think are significant. I think we get an October 8th in there somewhere, but so an 8/8. Can't remember which one that was. Was it October 8th? No, that was a different number. What was that one? Don't know why we got October 8th, 2002. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay, that's what I did. I also put, if you go 12/19, 9/11/13, that is, if you take the Mayan date, 13/09/11/13, and you go one whole, guess what are those things called? Not the first one, but the second one. So that's 7,200 days earlier. You would get 12/19, 9/11/13, and that date is October 8th, 2002. So that gives us the 8-8, or 8-8 in the sense of October as being 8. We could also say it's 10-8, which gives us that 1/10 of an hour. That would be another way of looking at it. Okay, that's interesting. So I don't know. Any other thoughts on that? Any thoughts about that? Those symbols? So if we're to pursue, if that's July 18th, inquiring after the Lord about shall I pursue, is this recovery of these wives, is this a message to us regarding what we should do? Are we to pursue? And what would that mean? And we know that they're going to find an Egyptian in a field, right? After 200 wait by the stuff, and they're going to feed him, right? So they're going to make him eat and drink water, and they're going to give him a cake of figs. So they're going to give him some figs and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his spirit came again to him, for he had eaten no bread nor drunk any water 3 days and 3 nights. So we were addressing that as well, the symbol of 3 days and 3 nights. What does that mean? In the context of this story, in the context of what's happened. So, I've scratched my head, well, literally scratching my head over this to try to figure out what it would mean. And then David said unto him, to whom belongest thou, and whence art thou? And he said, I am a young man of Egypt, servant to an Amalekite, and my master left me because 3 days agone I fell sick. So he was one of the Amalekites' servants, but he's from Egypt. So what does that mean? Right? Again, all of these symbols, and then 3 days agone he fell sick, right? So he hadn't eaten for 3 days and 3 nights. Now it's kind of strange. 3 days agone I fell sick. Well, yes, I understand, but why is there no Hebrew number for there? Right? So wouldn't they normally put that in italics? Because he just fell sick. So there's nothing about agone in the Hebrew, right? At least I don't think that you can have, I fell sick. It's just the word is, I'm sick, right? So, I was sick for 3 days, right? But anyway, it's just how they translated it. So 3 days ago he fell sick. It says he hasn't eaten for 3 days and 3 nights. So we can see that that's intensity, because 3 days, and that would have been 4 days ago, right? In how they would look at it in time. So it's just an example showing us that 3 days and 3 nights does not refer to 72 hours. So when he fell sick, they stopped feeding him because they just left him, right? So what could this possibly represent? I need some ideas. Is there any way we can
contrast between the way we're supposed to treat folks that are, well, in this case, he was brought into the fold, and the world?
Okay, so he's an Egyptian. You're using that as the world.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
You know what? This also reminds me of, and also the attitude of the people that were scorning those that stood by the stuff. Reminds me of that parable in Matthew 20 about the times that the workers were hired, and the ones that were hired last were really vilified.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what came into my brain too.
Okay.
Matthew 20 verses 1 to 14 or whatever.
Okay.
The resentment that some people have because people come in late to the movement, right? I know I was one of the latecomers. Glad nobody scorned me. At least not at that time.
Yeah, so we know agone means ago, right? It's just past tense. But it's just not in the Hebrew, is my point. So now the Egyptian means double straits, right? So the idea here is that there's 2 places, Upper and Lower Egypt. Okay, that's what they think that it refers to, the doubling of it. So the Jews referring to it as Mitzrayim. So the double straights. So it's just kind of a strange, I mean, whether we're going to use that meaning of the word or we're just going to use the general symbol of Egypt being the world. I don't know.
Yeah, what also comes to me is when Paul was saying, I am in a strait betwixt two, whether to remain living in the body, right, or to go to die. In one of his statements to one of the churches, I don't know, or maybe all of the churches. Well, that just came into my head now. So
yeah, I don't know.
Are you going to make, what choice are you going to make? Are you going to be more useful remaining as doing what you're doing, or is it your time to depart, so to speak, to be put to sleep?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, but I think that's sort of a different meaning of the word straits, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here, double straits refers more to a geological feature, like the Strait of Gibraltar, right? So water passing between two bodies of land. Now they're going to, of course, happen upon this guy as they're going to chase the Amalekites, right? And he's going to give them a little bit of information. We made an invasion upon the south of the Kerethites. So the Kerethites, Kerathim, what is that particularly? Executioners? A group of foreign mercenary soldiers serving as a bodyguard for King David, also executioners. Okay, so it's either a nickname for Cretans or Proto-Philistines in general. Okay. And upon the coast which belongeth to Judah, so the border of Judah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. So they had this basically four things that he's done: an invasion on the south of the Kerethites, upon the coast which belongeth to Judah, upon the south of Caleb, and burneth Ziklag with fire. So these four things are what they had done. And David said to him, canst thou bring me down to this company? And he said, swear unto me by God. So they're ever going to have the oath, right? 7 times. That thou wilt neither kill me nor deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will bring thee down to this company. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff here.
Well, while we're pursuing different meanings and what the time spans stand for, don't we find other things that are really interesting?
Yeah.
No, we don't expect, like the meme, for example. Who expected to find that, or who expected to focus on that? And we searched it out, and we found it had great meaning. And then, as we're looking for other things, we find other things besides what we're looking for.
Okay. Yeah. And as far as what, we're doing, so we're studying, but the purpose of this is here with David is that the wives have been taken and a lot of their stuff taken, right, by the Amalekites. And if we can connect this to what's happening presently, what message would that be to us? It's not just that we're supposed to study, but that there is something that we have to do. I mean, what's that?
We're supposed to apply it to our lives.
Okay, well, we're applying it to our lives, but this seems more like an act of, let's say a type of evangelism of some sort. And I do think that somehow the things that we are studying, even though it hasn't had a great effect on a large scale, with what's happening in the world, and with this book coming out dealing with the Sabbath, I think that there's going to be lots happening that we maybe couldn't have anticipated. But we do have to be active in some way, right? I mean, we can't just say, oh, well, everything's just going to happen and we just keep doing what we're doing. I do think that there is something we have to do. We have to pursue, whatever that particularly means. And we have to feed this young man, this Egyptian that comes our way, with a cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. So whatever those refer to.
What also comes to me is Proverb 8:34 through 36. Blessed is the man that heareth me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the posts of my doors. For whoso findeth me findeth life, and shall obtain favor of the Lord. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death.
Okay. Yeah, there's so many different things here that we could look at. I just don't really know where to go.
1 Samuel 30:22, where it says, and answered all the wicked men, etc., etc. They didn't want to take care of, or they didn't want to provide for those that stood by the stuff, assuming that they were not willing to go up into the battle. But these people, had they had the energy to, would have gone to the battle. Because they didn't, they were assigned staying by the stuff and guarding the stuff. I think that the guardians of the truth, like older people, for example, that the spirit of prophecy talks about, who have been faithful in the work, should be provided for when they can no longer carry on as they did when they were younger and fit. The Lord's going to reward them just as mightily as he will the youth who carry on, and because they have the ability to carry on. When you no longer have the ability to keep up with the physical labor, why should you not be rewarded for what you've already accomplished for the Lord?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And David keeps crediting the Lord with it, with the victory. You shall not do so, my brethren, of that which the Lord hath given us, who hath preserved us, I mean all of us, and delivered the company that came against us into our hand. Like he gives credit to God entirely. He's not saying, well, with our own might we have accomplished so and so. That's something to really take note of too. Whatever good we do, it's definitely of God.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, lots of little thoughts there, but how we can put them together.
The mainstream seems to want to toss it all aside. Everything that led up to the church is to be set aside now. So what are you standing on then? If you destroy the foundations, you have no foundation.
Mm-hmm.
This is what was, I won't use the term I was going to use, but it really deterred me from continuing with the church, because I saw it was heading to dismal destruction. And I really needed to find something better.
Yeah. So we have the Amalekites, right? So we know that Amalek is going to be the ones that attack the rear of Israel as they're fleeing Egypt. That there's going to be a curse upon the Amalekites, that they're going to be destroyed, right? That is delayed for 400 years. And Saul is supposed to destroy Amalek, but he doesn't, right? He doesn't completely accomplish the task. So Amalek still exists. Now, Amalek's going to be the one that takes away David's and his men, take away their wives, right? Now, he had a battle against the Amalekites. This time when he goes with Achish, king of Gath, during that time, the Amalekites are then going to come and do this. So we know that David had, if he hadn't, well, there's lots of, if he had done things differently, things would have been different. But here in this case, he has a type of God's providence, a deliverance from his quandary that he's in. But during that time, there's still a consequence of that these wives are taken. But they're not going to be killed, right? And they will be able to get their stuff back from the Amalekites, including the wives, right? So then they run into this Egyptian, right, who's hasn't eaten for 3 days and 3 nights. 3 days ago, he had got sick. And so they find him, and he's going to then lead them to where the Amalekites are, with a vow, an oath, 7 times, right? That that he's not going to be delivered into the hands of his master, and so he can lead them down to where they're going to be. Right. So that's all of those details. Yeah, and then we have the 400 and the 200. Okay, what's Kelly saying here? Yeah, I don't know if I'd take the 200 yards because it's not 200 yards. It was about 150 yards. That's just the initial report said it was 200 meters or something like that, or 200 yards. But yeah, it was closer than that. So I don't think I would connect that. But that's, Kelly just asked about it. And we don't have a 400 there. So just the 400 and the 200, which is 600, is just a division of 600. I don't know what to do with that, but we have that as another detail, right? So you got the people at the brook Beisel. So lots of different things that we could look at as symbols. Yeah, I wish I had more answers on this. Okay, and then David defeats the Amalekites. And when he had brought him down, behold, they were spread abroad upon the earth, eating, drinking, dancing, because all the great spoil that they had taken out of the land of the Philistines and out of the land of Judah. And David smote them from twilight, even unto the evening of the next day. And there escaped not any man of them, save the 400 young men which rode upon the camels and fled. So if we're going to deal with twilight, that would be evening, right? It's a period of evening after the sun goes down. And then unto the evening of the next day. So is this battle going on for then an entire day?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, well, whether that's correct translation or not. Let's see what different. So here it says David attacked them just before sunrise the next day and fought until sunset. So I kind of think that they're not fighting during the night, it's just during the day, which makes more sense to me. Because twilight, well, I normally think of twilight as the evening, but twilight could refer to the morning. But that just, and what does it say in Hebrew? So we got this word neshef, the breeze, dusk, or dawning of the day. So it can be morning or evening. Okay, with the mem preposition or prefix as a preposition. Okay, then we also have the word smote. Again, we've looked at that word. 5221 in reverse is 1225, so we usually relate that to December 25th, 2021. And then we have the evening of the next day, Mokaraf, which is the morrow, or actually till tomorrow. So it doesn't mean the morning, it means just the next day, tomorrow, even though morrow has morning in it, and then the evening erev, right? Okay, so it means during the daytime. Now, this is going to be what time of year, according to what we have done with the chronology? Because remember, David's going to live in Ziklag in a full year and 4 months. So this is going to be the end of 4 months. We would understand it that way. So this is going to be roughly in late summer sometime. So it's going to be a long day, I guess, is the point that I'm trying to point out, not a shorter day, not that their day varies that much. So we know that some are going to escape on camels, that is 400 are going to escape on camels. Now we have the 400, of course, that then are fighting, right, of David's men, because 200 are staying by the stuff. And they're going to have 400 men flee, the Amalekites are. So we got 400 and 400 as numbers. It's kind of odd. I mean, there's not going to escape, not a man, except 400, right? Yeah.
Well, and that they were riding camels, couldn't it be standing for Islam?
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm thinking. There's something there. But yeah, so we have lots of symbols, but to put them all together yet, I haven't seen how we can do that, how we can make this story. David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away, and David rescued his 2 wives, and there was nothing lacking to them, neither small nor great, neither sons nor daughters, neither spoil nor anything that they had taken to them. David recovered all. And David took all the flocks and the herds which they drave before those other cattle, and said, "This is David's spoil." And David came to the 200 men, which were so faint that they could not follow David, whom they had made also to abide at the brook Besor. And they went forth to meet David and to meet the people that were with him. And when David came near to the people, he saluted them. Then answered all the wicked men and men of Belial, of those that went with David, and said, "Because they went not with us, we will not give them aught of the spoil that we have recovered, save that every man his wife and his children, that they may lead them away and depart." Then said David, "Ye shall not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord hath given us, who hath preserved us and delivered the company that came against us into our hand. For who will hearken unto you in this matter? But as his part that goeth down to the battle, so shall his part be that tarrieth by the stuff, and they shall part alike." And it was from that day forward that he made a statute and an ordinance for Israel unto this day. And when David came to Ziklag, and sent of the spoil unto the elders of Judah, even to his friends, saying, "Behold, a present for you of the spoil of the enemies of the Lord, to them which were in Bethel, and to them which were south in Ramoth, and to them which were in Jatir, and to them which were in Aroer, and to them which were in Siphmoth, and to them which were in Eshtemoa, and to them which were in Rachel, and to them which were in the cities of the Jerahmeelites, and to them which were in the cities of the Kenites, and to them which were in Hormah, and to them which were in Korashan, and to them which were in Atha, and to them which were in Hebron, and all the places where David himself and his men were wont to haunt. So it lists a bunch of cities where David is going to give them some of the spoil. Now, why is he doing that?
Well, it says he sent them to his friends.
Well, to the people who had befriended them, that had helped support them during the time he was fleeing from Saul, is my understanding of it, right?
Sounds like it, yeah.
Okay, now Saul is dead. Does David know that Saul's dead at this point? Or is Saul dead at this point? We believe he is, but so he wouldn't know that Saul's dead yet, right? Because he's not going to receive word that Saul's dead. We're going to have the death of Saul listed here, but we assume from based on the spirit of prophecy.
Yeah, 2 Samuel 1:1 says, after the slaughter of the Amalekites, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, the third day somebody came to tell him of Saul's death.
Yeah, so the next chapter is going to tell us about the death of Saul, but Saul had died earlier, right? It's not going to tell us this story in order, right?
So it seems.
Chronological. Because Ellen White's going to put the death of Saul earlier in that earlier battle with the Philistines, right? So, but the Bible's not going to tell us about that because it's addressing David, what's happening with David. Then it's going to come back and tell us about the death of Saul. And in the next book, 2 Chronicles, it'll tell us about David hearing that Saul had died. So it's putting this story not chronologically in a strict sense, but just thematically. So it's telling about the death of Saul, because Saul has died already, and then it's going to tell us that David hears about the death of Saul. So they have to tell us about the death of Saul, how it happened, so that when we get David hearing about the death of Saul, we know that the story that's being told him is not the correct story, right? Because he's going to be told a false story about how Saul died, because this guy feels that he's going to get a reward. So the one thing we can say in chapter 30, so I know we're going to have to come back to a lot of this stuff and sort through it. But we know that David at this point doesn't know Saul has died. So he's doing this not so that he can gain favor with the people, because he's going to become king, right? He's just doing this out of thankfulness for those that have supported him, is my understanding of it. Right. So it's not some kind of political plan, right? He's not trying to, gain favor at this point. But it is going to be something that as time goes on, David is, in order to become the king of all of Israel, it's going to take a bit of time, right? Mm-hmm. Basically 7.5 years, as we understand it. Now Kelly had brought up, Charlie Kirk personally received a great controversy on March 28th by Ivan Raj. So there's a fulcrum article. Now, of course, he knows about Adventists already. So, anyway, this guy makes a comment. So is it the article itself?
Charlie Kirk used to speak at Adventist, this Adventist group, Wisdom Pearl or something like that.
Okay.
He spoke.
So anyway, yeah, I'd heard that he had received a great controversy. I don't remember where I heard that. Might have seen this article. I can't remember. So lots happened in the last week. So we're going to have to come back to chapter 30. I just don't really know what to do with all of that. We see a bunch of symbols that are related to this time. And, this inquiry is important. So now we have the death of Saul. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. So we know that this is earlier, right? So this isn't after, right? This is earlier. How much earlier? Well, I would say, a number of days at least, right? So it's some period of time. So we know that David and his men are going to separate from the Philistines, right? The Philistines are going to go down to this battle. It's going to be in that battle that Saul is killed, but they're not going to be involved. They're going to then travel, and I think it said 3 days or something like that. So anyway, when they get back, their wives are gone, and then they're going to pursue, and so we know that they're going to find this guy who's for 3 days hasn't eaten anything. And then they're going to go back and find that, they're going to go back, and then he's going to distribute all of this stuff to different people before chapter 1. So how the timelines of this, often when you're reading in the Bible, and then Kelly has more there about Wisdom Pearl Conference in Arizona. So they were talking about the seventh-day Sabbath. So you can read that. I don't know what the Wisdom Pearl Conference in Arizona is. I'm not really sure what a melting pot of truth seekers is.
Yeah, I was in touch with them months and months ago. I'd actually forgotten about them since I'm no longer on Facebook.
Okay. So it doesn't seem like they're Adventists, right? It's something else. And then, so they were invited, and people are keeping the Sabbath. Several people decided to keep the Sabbath as a result of the meetings. I don't know. Charlie Kirk shared his journey in discovering Sabbath rest on Saturday. He initially discovered it through his Jewish friend, Dennis Prager, which I know because I saw an interview with Dennis Prager where he talks about that. Charlie studied it out and found that the Sabbath was instituted at the Garden of Eden and that Sunday sacredness was established by the Catholic Church. He saw the beauty in keeping the fourth commandment and how it helps us keep the other 9. The temptation to break the other laws when lessons when we're spending quality time with our family and taking time out for God every Sabbath. So obviously we're going to see issue with that. So we have this somehow that there is the story that we've been studying in 1 Samuel has been primarily addressing this movement. But it seems that there is something where the study is moving from what's happened in the movement to what's happening in the world in a more direct way, right?
Well, we can see that.
Yeah,
It's
so we
been
can see
moving that way more and more.
Yeah, so first it's focusing upon our errors and mistakes, the things that we have done wrong, our sins, our disbelief. We can see that in July 18th, David representing July 18th and those connected with July 18th. But David is this transfer from Saul to David is also a transition from the message that's been centered upon the movement to this message going out to the world. And of course, this situation with Charlie Kirk has, well, it's changed the world, right? The world is not going to be the same place, just as 9/11 changed the world, or November 9th, 1989 changed the world. You see this major shift. And so now we're going to have the death of Saul. Now we're saying that has to do with FFA. What exactly it has to do with it, what it means that David finds out about the death of Saul, how, and then the different aspects of this message, how those are going to apply to what's happening in the world, I don't know, right? So there's lots of stuff I don't know, but the one thing I don't know is what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. So anyway, it's going to bring us back to this story. The Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa, right? So we got Mount Gilboa, that's 1533. So we already looked at this before. That's pretty significant. And we looked at the 1533 days we had in this movement. And where did we place the 1533 days? Do we remember?
I wish I did.
Okay. So we had counted them. Let me see. I'm trying to remember myself. Yeah, so we counted them from January 14th, 2017 to March 27th, 2021. So just to be clear, on January 14th, 2017, Jeff is going to be at Glen Park Hall on Glen Park Road near Warburg. So it's between Warburg and Thorsby. And in that presentation, he's going to give us this new information about Raphi and Penium, in particular the prediction of the pandemic, right? And that's going to occur between midnight and the midnight cry, which at that time we didn't have any dates for, but later we applied those dates to November 9th, 2019, and July 18, 2020. And so the pandemic does fall between those dates, right? So that's going to be the start of the pandemic. And then we have the 1533 going to March 27th, 2021. We know that March 27th ends up being the end of that structure with the Levitical chiasm. So you're going to have 441 days or 63 weeks from January 11th, 2020 to March 27th, 2021. Right? So that 1533 becomes a symbol in that history. Now we also had, there was another one, I'm trying to remember. I think it was just the 1219. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Then we also had 1533 days from November 9th, 2019 to January 20th, 2024. So that's going to be 1 year before. So that's going to be 2024. So, well, okay. So we had that 1533. There must have been more to this. Oh, okay, that's what it is. November 9th, 2016 to January 20th, 2021. So to the inauguration of Biden. So it's 219 weeks. And then November 9th, 2016 that's going to be Trump's Trump's election in 2016.
Yeah.
So there's 1,533 days from when Trump was elected, declared the winner in 2016, to Biden's inauguration on January 20th, 2021. Okay, so that's what that was, 219 weeks. And then I also have from January 14th, 2017 to December 25th, 2021. So I'll just show you this here. This helps if you can see the picture. So this 1533 has two different spans in it. So you can see, if I make this a little bit bigger. Now, I have here that when we count from November 9th, 2019, we got the 777 days to December 25th, 2021. And of course, the significance there is that's where the one is, right? So part of this has to do, the 1533 has to deal with the understanding of Rapha and Panium, right? That's one thing that it does. And then it also connects to the election of Trump and Biden. But we can see there's the November 9th, 2016 and the November 9th, 2019, both those November 9ths in there, plus the November 9th, 1989. There's 1,533 weeks to March 27th, 2019, which is the center of those two dates, 10/13/18 and 9/7/19, part of the Levitical chiasm. So there's a lot more to this structure. It's a fairly complex structure. But we can see the 1,533 weeks, the 1,533 days has two periods, and that these connect to November 9th and to March 27th and to January 20th and to December 25th. And December 25th at the end of this line is when Colin presents the riddle, right? Remember, he's going to say 5 are fallen, 1 is. But he's going to say that the one that is Trump, right?
Yeah, he still is.
Yeah, but the problem is that Trump is not the one that is.
Oh.
Is he?
Nope.
Right? Because Trump is already fallen. And so at the time that we come to understand the riddle as applying to the 7 kings being the presidents of the United States, we cannot say, because the prophet is there at the time that it's understood, that we cannot say that the one is one that's already fallen, right?
Right.
You'd have to say the one that is the one that is, which is Biden. Now, yeah, the riddle doesn't work then, right? But it does work if we understand that the one that is Biden. And so when I'm there and Colin is presenting this, I'm seeing all of this, but that never gets discussed, right? Because the focus then becomes upon, the controversy between me and Colin when I'm really trying to support Colin. So as we continue studying this out, we come to understand quite clearly that the only way that we can understand the riddle is the one that is Biden. And that he's doing the count wrong, right? That he's counting not from the first king of Persia as the one he's counting from, technically, the king of Media as one, right? So he's starting from Reagan, which we wouldn't do. So anyway, we know all that. We've gone through that. But then we can just say that Gilboa represents this 1533, and that in our history, this 1533 ties together all of these things, including the understanding of the riddle, right? Colin's going to use the 1533, November 9th, 2016 to January 20th, 2021, as, part of his argument for the fact that he believes that Trump is going to be the 8th, that Trump's going to be reelected or come into power, and he's going to be both the 6th and the 8th. But we can see that Trump is not the 6th. And also that the 8th can't be a president of the United States. It never says there are 8 presidents of the United States. There's 7. 7 kings. And the 8th is just the one that follows the 7, the resurrection of the papacy, is an American pope, right? So we understand all of that now. We didn't fully understand all of that then. But the point that I was making back then, that I understood, is that the one that is must be Biden, right? But we have to study that out and, confirm it. But that's where we can see the one has to be December 25th, 2021. So that's going to be 777 days after November 9th, 2019. But the reason why we have it here in this structure is because these 2 periods of 1533 days that are tying together the presidents. So it's showing us this whole transition to these presidents of the United States, the 7 kings, right? So it's showing us that the one is. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to people. So now Kelly put there the contact. Why would we contact Wisdom Pearl? Is it just that it's in Babylon, New York? Is that the point? Is that why you put the contact information there, Kelly? Or are you telling us to contact them? What is it? Anyway, it's interesting that that group Wisdom Pearl has contact information in Babylon, New York.
Yeah.
Okay. So Kelly's saying that it's interesting that it's Babylon. Okay.
The
so
Empire State.
The what?
Well, when I was in New York, they were calling it the Empire State. I presume they still do.
They call New York the Empire State?
Yeah. That's why they have the Empire State Building, which I never visited, strangely enough. I mean, I walked by it a few times. I used to work in Manhattan. I lived in Manhattan a while.
Oh, really?
So Babylon, the Empire, right?
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So, yeah. So lots of things to think about. Okay. So the 1533 dealing with Gilboa. Now, when we look at Gilboa, that means a fountain, right? So we already know that. We've dealt with Gilboa a lot, the swollen heap. It's made up of 2 different words, 1530 and 1158. Okay. The Philistines followed upon Saul and his sons, and the Philistines slew Jonathan and Abinadab and Melchishua, Saul's sons. So Jonathan's going to be killed here in this battle.
A lot of waste.
Yeah. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. So we usually use the archers to refer to Islam.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that, how we would apply that in with FFA at the present time, I'm not certain. We could just say it has something to do with, maybe the failure of July 18. I don't know.
Yeah. Just the fact that 400 fled on camels, I was thinking, well, maybe Islam did plan an attack on that date, and because we exposed it foolishly, because we were wrong about it, that they fled. So I don't know.
I kind of think that, but no proof of it. So,
and
then said Saul. Yeah. So then said Saul unto his armor bearer. So armor bearer is 2 different words, 5375, nasa, right, which means to lift, and Kelly, lifting implements. So we've looked at that word before. And then draw thy sword and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come thrust me through and abuse me. But his armor bearer would not, for he was sore afraid. Therefore Saul took a sword and fell upon it. So Saul's going to commit suicide. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor bearer, and all his men that same day together. So whatever that day, the same day. So it's not like the self same day. Okay. And when the men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley, and they that were on the other side of Jordan, saw that the men of Israel fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook the cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. So, other side of the valley, so they were on the other side of Jordan, right? So you got, that's the Jordan Valley then that would be referring to. Okay, so let's, so a mountain ridge on the southeastern end of the plain of Jezreel. Okay, so just gonna do this. I guess we could do it this way. There we go. So that's called Saul's Shoulder. But that's Mount Gilboa. Okay, so just it's nice to get a picture of what it looks like. Obviously, it wasn't, they didn't have those nice fields and stuff there back then, I don't think. And they didn't have cars.
I guess.
Yeah. It's probably a lot more wooded and stuff back then as well. Okay. So anyway, that's where the battle's going to be. Now, as far as its particular location, so it says it's on the end of the plain of Jezreel, site of the death of Saul and Jonathan. Yeah, so it overlooks the Jordan Valley and the Herod Valley. Okay, so I'm going to get a map here. Okay, so it's kind of between the Dead Sea and the Sea of Galilee, roughly. It's more towards the Sea of Galilee than the Dead Sea. I can show you this picture. So you can see here it is, Mount Gilboa. It's showing you where this is in the context of this whole area. So there's the Dead Sea, and there's the Sea of Galilee, and it's going to be about here. So it's, well, probably 3/4 of the way from the sea, from the Dead Sea to the Sea of Galilee, but over off to the side. So there's Esdraelon, and this is Mount Gilboa, and there's the valley here, and there's, we were seeing this part in that other picture. So the reason why I look at that is, where's David? Because he's not anywhere near there, right? So it's quite a distance, we would have to say, where this battle is from where David is, because he's over in the land of the Philistines, right? Okay, so Charlie Kirk.
Or somewhere around there.
Yeah. So Kelly put, Charlie Kirk warned that the left will use Islam to bring down America. The spiritual battle is coming to the West, and the enemies are wokeism or Marxism combined with Islamism to go after what we call the American way of life. So the American way of life is very simple. I want to be able to get married, buy a home, have kids, allow them to ride their bike till the sun goes down, send them to a good school, have a low crime neighborhood, not have my kids be taught all this lesbian and gay, gender, transgender stuff in school, also, while also not having them to have to hear the Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day. That's important.
That's the least of it.
Yeah. So these two threats are combining forces to come after us. And he has stripped the slain there. Okay, so yeah, doesn't seem like we're getting lots of little pictures of things, but we haven't put them together yet. But that's okay.
We will.
Yeah, we will. Okay. Yeah, so we're dealing with Islam, with the arrow that hits Saul, right, from the archers, which you used to represent Islam. So now we know that they're gonna men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley, they that were on the other side of Jordan.
Yeah, it says that Saul died with his 3 sons and his armor bearer all the same day. So it was a sudden death, almost simultaneous, it sounds like.
Yeah, and it came to pass on the morrow that the Philistines came to strip the slain. They found Saul and his 3 sons fallen in Mount Gilboa, right? So they didn't know that they killed him at first until they come and find his body. So then they're gonna, cut off his head, stripped off his armor and sent into the land of the Philistines round about to publish it in the house of their idols and among the people. And they put his armor in the house of Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Beth Shan. So Beth Shan is the house of ease. And the inhabitants
Wow.
of Jabesh Gilead, right? So we just Jabesh Gilead to distinguish it from other Gileads. So this is the area that's east of the Jordan, heard of that which the Philistines had done to Saul. And all the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan and came to Jabesh and burnt them there. And they took their bones and buried them under a tree at Jabesh and fasted 7 days. So we got, of course, the 7 days, Sheba, and Yom for days, right? So, yeah. So there's lots of things that we could look at as symbols, but how we're going to place this, how we're going to create these lines for this, I don't have the slightest idea at this point.
Well, we will as we go through it.
Yeah, I know. It's just almost like there's too much. Like there's so much that we've come to understand as these symbols, so much that's happening in this story. Okay. And then we go to, so when we start looking at this part where Saul hears, or David hears of Saul's death. So obviously this is sometime afterward, because Saul's going to die. They're going to have, the Philistines are going to find his body and his son's bodies. Then they're going to put them in the house of Bethshan. And then this is going to be heard, right, by the people of Jabesh Gilead. They're going to go and recover his body, burn his bones, and bury them. And then, messengers are going to have to arrive here to tell David. So that's all going to take time. And it says, now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had abode 2 days in Ziklag. It came to pass on the 3rd day. So again, we have all of these 3 days, and we're going to have to try to pay attention to this and figure out where these fit. And that, behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul with his clothes rent and earth upon his head. And so it was that when he came to David, that he fell to the earth and did obeisance. Now, that word obeisance, 7812, shaka is one of those words that we used. We noticed it with Saul before as well, but it symbolizes July 18, 2020. Just got the 8 and the 1 switched, right? But otherwise it's 7, 18, 20. So Saul, we had that with Saul bowing, right? Prostate. And now also we have 7218, which is just Rosh, and he rent his earth upon his head. So we got the 7218 and the 7812 in this. Plus we also have the earth, right? The ground, 776. So all of those things come together. Okay. And then just looking at some of the other numbers. Here they have the word earth, but that's a different word. That's the word Adam or Adama, right? And then 7812 for obeisance. And David said unto him, from whence comest thou? And he said unto him, of the camp of Israel am I escaped. Now, of course, his story is not true, right?
Yeah.
So exactly who is he? We're going to have to figure some of this out. And David said unto him, how went the matter? I pray thee, tell me. And he answered, that the people are fled from the battle, and many of the people also are fallen and dead. And Saul and Jonathan his son are dead also. And David said unto the young man that told him, how knowest thou dead or be dead? And the young man that told him said, as it happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. Leaned is also 8172. So we got another Hebrew word that has 817 and 2 in it, so July 1820. And we already dealt with the spear symbolism. And lo, his chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And he looked behind him, and he saw me, and called unto me, and answered, here am I. And he said unto me, who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. And he said unto me again, stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me, for the anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. And so I stood upon him and slew him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head and the bracelet that was on his arm, and have brought them hither to my Lord. Okay, so this person, this Amalekite, so how did he come upon this? Like, I mean, he wasn't there when Saul died, obviously, right? But he's going to say that he was. But they had stripped him of his armor. So how would he have got this bracelet and the crown?
He must have been one of the strippers.
That came out wrong. Yeah. Then David took hold on his clothes and rent them, and likewise all the men that were with him. And they mourned and wept and fasted until even for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword. And David said unto the young man that told him, whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger, an Amalekite. And David said unto him, how wast thou not afraid to stretch forth thine hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? And David called one of the young men and said, go near and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. And David said unto him, thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth has testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. Okay, so anyway, our time's up for today. So we're going to have to come back to this. But yeah, there's a lot of things we have to consider. Okay. It is related, Kelly asks, is it related to the protest march in Britain? The bones, the dates, the boiled bones? I don't understand how that would relate. What does the bones have to do with the protest march in Britain? Does anybody know?
No, I haven't been following it.
Yeah.
Can't get much on these computers. Well, this Amalekite sought to buy his life and freedom by ingratiating himself with. Obviously, that sure fell apart.
Yeah, it backfired. But yeah, we got to find out more about, like, how would he have got the bracelet, all that kind of things. Okay, so there are two different questions. Well, I don't know how I'd relate it.
Bracelet and the crown, right? Well, one's on the head and one's around the wrist near the hand. That's something to do with the mark of the beast. Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, there's just a lot here. Okay. Anyway, we're going to have to come back to this and try to figure this out. Okay, well, let's pray. Dear Father in heaven, we are thankful, Lord, for the time that we've had this morning. We just ask for your continued presence throughout this day, that your angels can watch over each one. For those that we love and care for, and that we interact with, we ask, Lord, that you can give us wisdom, and we just pray that you can help us as we think about these things throughout this day, that we can have a fresh look at it tomorrow, and that we can have your guidance. So we pray this and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.